Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Meanwhile Back on the Podcast. I am your host, Frank McGuire, and this is the I can't believe I fucked that up already. This is the Blind Spot, the official after show for Daredevil Born Again. And I'm here with my two co-hosts. We got Rich and we got Brad. What's up, fellas? How are you?
Doing good.
Absolutely fantastic.
You excited to talk a little Daredevil or what?
Very excited.
You'll have to wait and see.
All right. Well, let's not waste any time. Let's jump into this. Let's talk first impressions. Wow is all I have to say. They definitely caught me off guard. I was not expecting that in the first 15 minutes of the episode, where they basically killed Foggy Nelson and had like this crazy fight sequence with Bullseye with Dex. Honestly, I wasn't that thrilled with the decision to kill Foggy this quickly into the show. I really thought that it was poorly thought out. And the only reason I think that is because there's no lead up to it. There's no pretext for it. There's no emotional investment beforehand before you kill off a core Daredevil character, like a central legacy Daredevil character. And it just felt cheap and it felt like they did it for shock value. However, I do have a couple of other theories. We can get into that, but I feel like I'm still with the show. Like, I still want to see what happens, but this is just like, I felt like somebody stuck a finger in my eye. Like that's how I felt about this. It's just a poorly thought out decision. Like, I just don't understand why they couldn't wait until episode 3 or episode 4 and kill him off then. Like, why did it have to be this episode? It didn't really make a lot of sense to me. The things that we're impressed with were the performances. I thought the performances were amazing. That scene on the roof of Josie's where Matt is like just broken to pieces and Dex is like smiling, bleeding, and cut up and bruised and broken, and that was pretty awesome. Vincent D'Onofrio killed it as Fisk, and there's a lot of great new faces in this cast, but I got a lot to say about the quantity of people we had to meet in this first episode. Like just that scene in Josie's, I felt overwhelmed. I'm like, wait, weren't we just at the table with Karen and Matt and they were having a conversation, and now we're like, since when in Daredevil do we follow around bit characters to eavesdrop on their conversations? That's not really a thing. That's not really a Daredevil thing. That's not even like, that wasn't even in the Netflix series. So yeah, I've got a lot to say. Anyways, let's start hearing from some other people, and we'll go from there. Rich, what was your first impressions?
I mean, I thought it was great for a lot of the same reasons you were saying. It was kind of funny though. I thought when I watched the first 2 episodes back to back like that, I was like, oh, they blew the budget on that first episode, because the second episode was a lot of talking, which was great. But that first episode was just fantastic. We'll probably get into it a little bit later, but I disagree with you with the Foggy thing. We'll get into that. At first I was mad, but then I thought this was needed. It's called Born Again for a reason. And with birth, pain comes. So we'll talk more about that, I think, when we get down a little bit. But first impressions, Wilson Fisk, great. Love seeing Vincent D'Onofrio is just an amazing actor, no matter what he plays. It's so funny watching him as Wilson Fisk and then thinking like, wait, this is the same actor that was in Men in Black that played the guy with wearing the Edgar suit. And I was like, just an amazing actor, and the same actor that was in Law and Order: Criminal Intent. Just so good in anything that he does. So I thought that was really neat. The diner scene where they were talking, kind of like at a standoff, like stay in your lane, I thought was a great piece of dialogue. For the Josie's bar scene at the beginning, I was kind of like you, like, who are these randos that we're we're listening to? But it pays off like real quick. So I was okay with that. I got everything that I wanted in what I wanted to have Daredevil to have. We had the oneer, which, I mean, technically it wasn't a oneer. It had some pretty neat camera tricks and some editing tricks, but for the most part, it was a 4-minute one take fight scene. We got a law drama developing, so we're going to see Matt Murdock in the courtroom, fighting with his wits as well as his fists. So I'm looking forward to that, to see how that plays out. I thought first impressions coming out of the gate strong. Looking forward to episode 3. When episode 2 was done, I was like, I want to watch 3 right now. But it's got to wait a week.
All right, Brad, first thoughts.
Yeah. So, I mean, and like you guys, the decision to kill off Foggy, like right away, damn, I was not ready for that. I thought that we were going to have him and Karen and Matt for longer, or if there was going to be like flashbacks or whatever. But then they killed him off. I was in, like Frank said, I was in shock. It was shock value 100% for me. But it kept me, and not that there wasn't anything else going on. It felt good. It didn't. It's not the level of the Netflix shows by far. I think the Netflix version is still better, but I think that this is as good as we could get right now. And when you see Vincent D'Onofrio and Charlie Cox sharing the screen together, it just makes you feel good. You're like, man, I want Spider-Man to swing in here. I want Daredevil. You know what? Hey, let's get a Nova in here. I don't care. I want more. But they went through everything. It didn't feel forced. It felt like these characters have been around. I would have liked to seen a little bit more, like maybe a blip sentence or something like that, because it is MCU now. But man, they started with the death of Foggy. Spoiler alert, guys. And they ended with that. They ended episode 2 with Matt embracing what we knew was going to come. And that fight scene in that apartment was freaking awesome. So I'm not mad. I'm here for the ride. I watched them both twice, and I am not. I can't even logically, like, I couldn't even critically think about these things. I was so in tune with them, and even after 2 watches, I'm like, was I can't find anything to really pick apart. So I'm happy with it right now. I can't wait to dig in and maybe change my mind a little.
Marvel's back, baby. Just kidding. I wouldn't go that far.
Okay, well, let's talk a little bit more about the positives and the negatives. And then I really want to deep dive into this idea that, like, the whole thing about killing Foggy off, like, it just doesn't track for me. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. And I say this as somebody who's a writer and a producer themselves. Like, I kind of think that this was a business decision, if I'm being honest, and I'll go into a little bit more detail on that. But so for me, the big positives were the performances. I thought the performances were great. I thought the new suit looked great. I really liked Heather Glenn. I thought the chemistry between her and Matt was awesome. You could cut that tension with a knife. That was pretty great. They nailed Bullseye. That guy was just offing people without a care in the world. Just literally like, oh, you're just a meat puppet. You know, here's a knife. Here's a billiard ball. Here's whatever I can get my fucking hands on. You're dead. Like, that was pure Bullseye. That was great. Total psycho. The oneer was good. It was very hyper realistic. Not a lot of comic book. Not very cartoonish, I would say. Like, I almost picture like a real fight like that happening at that pace and with that kind of, with those kind of moves. Like, there wasn't anything fancy about it. It was just brutal. and mechanical, and like they were just throwing knives at each other and punching each other, and that was it. There wasn't any like crazy spin kicks or like anything stylistic. It was just like pure brutality throughout the entire fight. Right? I thought that was it's accurate. But I also think that this is a comic book show, and they think that they have to kind of find the middle ground a little bit. So I felt a little bit let down by some of that. Also, the ultra wide shot for that oneer. Clearly, it's an open face set. Too wide, if you ask me. Far too wide on most of those shots. I think they should have been tight. They should have had a couple of close ups. With a guy with, the glide cam or whatever, like that, or a steady cam. That would have been really cool. Sure, you probably can't get too close to them, for safety reasons or whatever, but I think they could have explored that a little bit more. And yeah, I thought that sequence was great. And then up on the rooftop was pretty crazy. The second episode was pretty good as far as the Fisk stuff. I like the role that James Gandolfini's son is playing. That little tryhard in the mayor's office. I think he's going to be a pretty critical character. But I feel like the characters just were piled in way too fast. It felt very CW. Like it was a lot of CW chaos in this show. And I think, with the old Daredevil show, I'm not really used to having that many characters to keep track of at any one time. The scenes don't switch back and forth that fast. The editing isn't that quick. They stay with the character. They let characters develop. They let moments sit. They let silences grow. They're not necessarily trying to drive the story along with every little decision that they make. They were happy in their, the pacing was actually great in that show, if I'm being honest. For this one, it just felt like, yeah, it had more of a mechanical, more of a manufactured sort of assembly line kind of feel to it. And I think that kind of took away from the quality a little bit. How do you guys feel about what I said about the cast? Did you guys feel like it was just a little too much? Rich, I'll start with you, seeing Brad's distracted.
Sorry.
It's all right.
It was a lot. I will admit that first episode, like I was saying, when they cut to Cherry and whoever he was talking to at the bar, I'm like, who are these people and why are we spending so much time with them? But I figured, okay, they're important, so I need to pay attention. And then I forgot who else was the DA that ended up being Matt's partner in the second episode. There was some time there, and so I would say there were a lot of characters to keep track of. It's funny you mentioned CW because I'm an Arrowverse veteran, so I guess I'm kind of used to seeing that. So it didn't really hit me that hard as I think it hit you. But I did at the bar. At the bar, I think it was a lot. There was a lot to keep up with in terms of conversations before the big fight scene. But I was able to keep him straight, and Cherry is a great character. I mean, by the second episode, I'm in. When he's Matt's investigator and he's doing the legwork and all that, great. He's going to be a really great character to keep up with. There was a lot, but I was cool. I was good with it, and I liked it.
Okay.
Yeah, it didn't bother me at all. Like I said, after you going into that first part and you're in the diner and everything like that, and I guess the thing that I will say is I was thinking, should I know these people? But and then it was gone so quick. They're like, oh, well, now it's a year later, so I guess I don't really need to know all these people, for at least for right now. So I didn't really have much of a problem. I liked it. Like I said, we will see what we need to pick up from that scene later on. But it's a kind of a cop out if there was so much going on and we couldn't concentrate on what we needed to concentrate on. So.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. Okay. I'm kind of with you, Brad, on that one. It's like, should I know this character? Like, especially with Cherry, I was like, was he in the Netflix series? Am I missing something? So there's some pause and Google moments for me when I was watching it.
Okay. So you weren't really taking much back about it because you're a CW guy and Arrowverse guy, so it's not really that big a deal to you. But
Yeah.
I think it's in direct contrast to who the character is, though. The character has always been a loner. Always. The group around him has always been very small, right? Always very small. And it just kind of felt like, yeah, it was like too young adult, too Beverly Hills 90210, too Melrose Place for me. It was just too many people. Like it just didn't like I don't know. I just couldn't square a lot of that. I also got this feeling in my gut that the production is off somehow. And it feels like they wanted that Netflix tier vibe, but they wanted to do it on a budget. And I can't figure out what's missing. But there's something critical missing from this show that it just isn't covering the gap. And I forgot to ask you guys about what you thought about my comments as far as the Wonder goes. Do you guys agree with anything I was saying about the Wonder, or do you guys have any counters to what I was saying about the Wonder?
I like the Wonder. It wasn't as pure of a Wonder as the hallway fight scene in Netflix season 1, Daredevil season 1. There
Right.
were some computer edits. There were some clever camera tricks. People walking in front of the camera. You can see it. You can see an edit there when they close the doors. There's edits there.
Smoke
Somebody
grenade.
flying through the window. I mean,
Smoke grenades.
Yeah, smoke grenades and the
Yeah.
smoke in general to make it a little bit more forgiving on the editors, I guess. So
Right.
it's a Wonder in the terms that it was a long shot. There weren't any like cuts away, but it wasn't as pure or practical as the Netflix one that is so famous now. But I liked it. I mean, I was wanting a Wonder, and I got a Wonder, and I hope it's not the last Wonder that we see. But yeah, I mean, I thought it was good. Clever use of computer and editing tricks to make it work.
I'm with you guys. We got what we asked for, and they had to do something. They had to do something, and I'm thinking like, okay, it's happening in episode 1 because it's it's them saying, okay, this is the Daredevil that you know. This is the Netflix. This isn't the She-Hulk Daredevil. This is the Netflix Daredevil, the one we love, all that kind of stuff. Here's your Wonder. It's like Rich was saying, it's not what you got. Both were saying, actually, it's not a real Wonder, but it's a 1.5er. We'll call it that.
Okay. Interesting that you said it's not the She-Hulk Daredevil that we got. It's interesting that you said that. Well, I agree with you. I feel like what they're trying to do is more on the surface than say beneath the surface. If that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like it just feels cosmetic to prevent it being the Daredevil that we got in She-Hulk. I just didn't really feel the substance there. If that makes any sense. Yeah, I don't know, man. What about Fisk? What was your guys' impression of D'Onofrio and Fisk? And I have some thoughts on that too, because like it's another Donald Trump analog, right? Very much so. And Matt eavesdropping on the entire city as they weigh the political climate in New York in the wake of and in the lead up to Fisk getting elected. It was almost like, hey, we're going to tap into the American consciousness and we're going to amplify it for everybody. That's what it kind of felt like. But again, this is another Trump analog. And I think doing this again so soon after Harrison Ford did it in Brave New World just kind of felt kind of corny. Like it didn't really land for me. It just felt sort of forced. Did you guys pick up on that? Did you guys make that connection? How'd you feel about that?
Yeah, absolutely did. Especially because it was on at the same time as the State of the Union was on as well. I mean, so
that's not an accident. Yeah,
absolutely was no accident. But I could take more of a Wilson Fisk being this big political figure, figurehead, i.e. Donald Trump, because he's been in the comics so many times. He's always been, there's always been like Mayor, whatever, Fisk. And I mean, and when you think about it, yeah, I know what you're trying to say, but really, Republican being being a mayor of New York, that's just hilarious. That turned the show into a comedy, you know. So like, whatever, man. We know you don't like it. We know where you stand. Just don't stand there very long. And I think it was fine. I was just like, whatever. Okay, you made your point. Go on. I know you're gonna keep on making it, but whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I thought.
Rich?
I mean, obviously the Trump comparisons were there. I mean, they did film it before the election, so to be fair, they filmed it before the election, before they knew Trump was going to win. I think beyond the comparisons to Trump, though, I think it's more beyond that. It's like every actor that has become a public figure: Arnold Schwarzenegger, Ronald Reagan, these actors that have the name recognition to be voted, right, to be voted into office. So I think Wilson Fisk has that parallel. He's well known in New York. When he walks into a room, he sucks all the oxygen out of it because he's such a big figure, right? Both in voice and in physical presence. And they showed just a small clip of the mayoral debate between him and whoever the other guy was. I would have liked to have seen him being elected to mayor was like super fast. You want to talk about no build up to something. There was no build up to that other than the callbacks to Echo, where especially in the diner scene where Matt Murdock and Fisk were talking, there were callbacks to Echo, where he's like, I'm not that man anymore. I'm not that violent person because of Echo's power of, I don't know, introspection. If you watch the Echo show, she touched his head, kind of took him back into his past where he killed his dad, and Echo telling him, let go of that anger, let go of that violence. And he can't do it, but he still comes back a changed person. So yeah, I mean, I think this is a Wilson Fisk that's going to be still Fiskian, but probably less violent. I mean, I don't know. We're only a couple of episodes in. We'll see what happens. I mean, there's only so many heads you can smash in a car door as a mayor, right? So we'll kind of see what happens. But I thought it was great. I think Fisk is just an overall representation of famous people winning the populace and becoming elected officials. So beyond Trump, even though the things there, I thought it was interesting where people were running out in the streets like fist pumping. Like, I don't remember that happening when Bill de Blasio was elected as mayor, but just yeah. But yeah, I think it's good. I think Wilson Fisk, if we're comparing him to Trump, I think Wilson Fisk is Trump if Trump was a little bit smarter and surrounded by people that like could do better instead of having a podcast host become the deputy director of the FBI. It's stuff like that, right? It's Wilson Fisk is Trump if Trump was smarter and more calculating than he is.
Disclaimer, that was a subjective opinion.
That was a subjective opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. Because just because someone's a podcast host, it doesn't necessarily undermine their suitability for any certain role.
Sure.
Right? The system's broken. They got to fix it somehow. It's time to move fast and break things. That's the way I look at it. Like, it's just time to move fast and break shit because nothing's fucking working anymore, dude. It's not working here in Canada. It's not working there. It's not working anywhere right now. Yeah. So let's just move fast and break shit. Let's do it. Let's see what happens. Let's see how the fucking pieces fall. I think that's what we got to do.
Yeah, I think one perfect example of Fisk being somewhat of a changed person is when he was threatening the police commissioner, and he lifted up the paper where the sandwich was on and showed him a picture of his family and the commissioner's secret love child. Easily could have been, if you don't do what I say, I'm going to kill these people because I know where they are. Now it's what you would expect in politics. I will reveal to the world that you have a secret love child, and it will ruin your career and ruin your reputation. That's the Fisk I think we're going to see in this part of Daredevil, just as Fiskian as he always is, but it's going to be different. It's not going to be he's not going to resort to the violence. He's going to resort to the games that all politicians play, right? The backstabbing and the backroom dealing, and but he's
Horse
just going to be
trading.
better at it.
Yep. No. And honestly, when I first saw that picture of the kids, I was like, oh shit, Fisk is going to murder his family.
Exactly.
Like that's first thing that went through my head. But then they had that extra piece of dialogue that was like, oh, it's a secret family. So he's got some leverage on him now. It's very much, very much like a Billions type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But they get it from the commissioner knowing
Bobby Axelrod, something like that. So, yeah, I get that. No, but like it just, I think they need to coordinate a little bit more within Marvel. Like there just feels like a lot of echoes of other things now. It just feels like repetitive. I just feel like there's there's like a lot of missed opportunities in this show, if I'm being honest, so far from what I can see. Who knows what's going to happen in the next 7 episodes, but listen, let's go back to the Foggy thing for a second, because I think people are glancing over some very important things when it comes to this decision to kill Foggy off. Okay. In my personal opinion, okay, the argument that I've been running to all day is like, oh, it was set up in season 3 of Daredevil. Bullseye was trying to kill Karen and Foggy the entire season. Yeah. Okay. Fair. Right. But that's 7 years ago. The last time, like that was when that episode, that's when that show finally aired, was like 7 years ago. Okay. I think that you have to get the audience emotionally invested in the character again before you kill them. I truly believe that. I feel like this was one of the laziest pieces of writing I've ever seen, to be honest with you. It just, and I have theories on why they did it, and I think it's more economical than anything, and I'll go into more detail on that. But I think when you're dealing with like a beloved legacy character like Foggy, we're talking a character that's been around for decades, right? 60, 70 years. He's been a cornerstone of the Daredevil mythos for so long. You can't just kill him like that. You just can't do it. And honestly, I truly feel that you can't kill, like even if it's just any character, like any legacy character, you can't just kill them in the first episode and like not even have a setup for it, not even have a lead up to it. No preamble, no pretext, no nothing. It doesn't really pay dividends. Like if you're optimizing for the most entertaining and most emotionally satisfying scenario that you can possibly have, killing him off in the first 15 minutes is not the right decision to have that outcome. Would you guys agree to that?
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know. Maybe.
We're talking about a choice between A and B, Rich. Like it's either yes or no.
I agree with them killing Foggy in the first 15 minutes. Totally okay with it. Totally okay with it.
But I'm saying if you want to optimize for the most entertaining and emotionally satisfying outcome, it doesn't really make a lot of sense to do it in the first episode, because if you did it later, you get the audience further invested into the character.
That is assuming everybody's watching this cold coming in, not having seen it. If we talk about emotional investment, I was emotionally invested when Foggy died. I teared up because I was invested from the first 3 seasons of Daredevil, and I didn't do a rewatch. I wanted to do a rewatch, but I didn't have the time to do it. But yes, it was 7 years ago. Now we don't know if it's an actual 7-year time jump to where we were at the 15 minutes. But yeah. I was emotionally invested, but only because I had to do some homework and watch the first 3 seasons. If I'm coming into Daredevil cold, not having watched those and being like, oh, everybody's talking about this Daredevil show, and I've watched the other MCUs, let's watch this one. And you see this, yeah, you're going to be kind of like struck by it. You don't know the relationship between Foggy, Karen, and Matt. You see them chummy, but you don't see how deep that relationship goes because you haven't watched anything previous to that. So yes, on one hand, I do agree with you that it is kind of shocking in the first 15 minutes that you don't build up that emotional stakes within the first 15 minutes of killing off a legacy character. You do if you've watched the first 3 seasons on Netflix, which I have, and I had that emotional connection. I was like,
Okay.
no way. And then they shipped Karen off to San Francisco. I was like, come on, man. And the production choice, I think, was, all right, fanboys, you wanted Karen and Foggy. We got them back, and now they're gone. So this is the Daredevil that you're going to have from here on out. Live with it. So
and that's my point.
Yeah,
and
that was part of it. But I was okay. It worked for me, though, in that instance.
Sure. But building off of what you said of people that are emotionally invested through season 3 or after season 3, right? Going into this, they're already emotionally invested. Isn't the investment going to accrue higher if you do it in episode 3 or 4? You can't argue that it wouldn't be.
I mean, it wouldn't be, but the title of the show is Daredevil Born Again. In other words,
Doesn't matter.
This is a different Daredevil than the Netflix Daredevil. And to have a different Daredevil in the Disney Plus version of Daredevil, you have to detach it from the Netflix in some way. I'm glad that they were there to make that connective tissue between the Netflix series and the Disney Plus version, but this is a whole new Daredevil. There's no legacy characters now other than Matt Murdock and Wilson Fisk. They even shoved Bullseye into life imprisonment. I mean, we don't know if that's going to be the case throughout the season. Might break out, who knows? But everything from the first 3 seasons are now gone, and now you have Matt Murdock with a whole new set of friends.
I'm glad you said that, because that's the sin. Therein lies the sin. You just pulled episode 7 of fucking Star Wars on the fans of Daredevil. You just pulled the same shit. And I'm sorry, but that's fucking unacceptable. Totally unacceptable in my mind. And the reason it's so unacceptable is because they used it in the marketing to hook the fans, and then they rug pulled them. You don't think that's you don't think it's a fucking shitty thing?
They at least gave them a couple of scenes together. Star Wars didn't give the originals a scene.
Fair enough.
And there will and we are getting the Punisher. Hopefully we'll get like Jessica Jones and and Iron Fist. I mean, and God, please, heroes for fucking hire. Heroes, I can't say it enough. I want heroes for fucking hire. Please, please, please.
Was it a rug?
I'm going to say this every episode. I want heroes for hire.
It's absolutely a fucking rug pull, dude.
No, I'm not disagreeing with you. It was a rug pull, but it worked. I mean, we look at. I was reading some reviews, some critics' reviews. There's the ones that I read didn't seem to have like an issue. They mentioned it and they said, look, it is jarring, but the way it happened worked. For me, and I agree with those critics that it worked. There was an emotional with Karen over Foggy's body, just crying out. It called back to her opening scene in Netflix over a dead body and screaming out and all that. So it had this symmetry between the Netflix series and tying it into this one, but then saying this is going to be a different Matt Murdock. This is a Matt Murdock that doesn't want to be Daredevil anymore because of this was the inciting incident of him.
I know.
And they jump forward a year later.
And that's the other thing we got to talk about. Matt Murdock historically is not a character that you need to do anything to push him over the edge. He goes over the edge all the fucking time. Historically. Like without fail. So it's not even worth the sacrifice. The only reason they did the sacrifice is probably because of the contractual obligations. And this is where we're going to talk about what my suspicions are as far as contractual obligations are. So when they started working on the Daredevil that they wanted to do at first, right? It was the comedy that we've discussed previously. It was, the Kirsten McDuffie. Actually, before I get into this, Brad, I want to hear what you're thinking after what Rich and I have said.
I see both. I see both sides, and I agree with both of you, and I disagree with both of you. For this one, man, I am.
Well, what do you agree with and what do you disagree with?
So I agree that the death of Foggy as a legacy character. Oh, well, actually, let me say it this way: as a comic book nerd who has read Foggy Nelson and Daredevil books in many, many issues, it pisses me off that they killed him the way that they killed him in 15 minutes in the first episode. But as a fan of just Daredevil and with, to Rich's point, the born again part of it, okay, makes sense. I get it. I wish it was longer, even if they did the cheap thing and did flashbacks through the first 4 episodes or whatever. I wish we would have got more of that, but they made up, to me, they made up for it for the rest of the episode 1 and then episode 2. So, I mean, it's one of those, I am going to kind of see, it's like with a TV show, it's like a game of bowling, and they might have rolled a strike, but we got to get the points 2 episodes down. So, that's my analogy. And I kind of like that analogy. I'm going to use that a little bit more. So,
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. Listen, I don't mean to be so animated about this, but for me, it's just the bait and switch quality of all this. That's what's really pissing me off. Right? It's not the fact that they killed Foggy, because I would have been happy with him dying in episode 4 or episode 5 or whatever, because that actually would have made some sense. You get the audience emotionally invested in him again, and you kill him off. And the only reason they didn't, and this is my theory, I think the only reason they didn't do that is because they didn't want to pay him to do the episodes, so they could do that. So they also wanted to keep the contractual obligations that they had with the actress that was playing Krista McDuffie, because clearly this is going to be the new friend circle for Matt. This is going to be his new people, right? Mm-hmm. And so they have to meet so this is what I think happened. The previous version of the story that got axed, right? All those actors were already hired. Kirsten McDuffie was already a part of that. I'm sure the other guy, what's his name? Cherry. I'm sure Cherry was a part of that. I'm sure BB was a part of that. I'm sure some of Fisk's people were a part of that. And what happened was they were like, oh shit, we're going down the wrong road. We got to redo a bunch of things. But if we're going to redo this, we got to do it on a budget. We can't get crazy with this. How can we satisfy the fans? Oh, I know what we can do. We can bait and switch Karen and Foggy to get them reinvested emotionally as we lead up to the series, right? And as they get there, they're like, okay, what pieces can we pull from this to put into here and to make it make sense and to also change the tone? What can we do here that's not going to cost us a ton of money? And this is what we got. This is basically what we got. And I think one of the most prohibitive things for them financially would have been keeping Karen and Foggy around, or Deborah and Eldon around. That would have been a financially prohibitive thing for them. Plus, they've already signed this contract with Kirsten, the actress playing Kirsten McDuffie. Brad, can you look that up? I don't want to keep calling her the actress that played Kirsten McDuffie, but the actress that played Kirsten McDuffie. And they committed to this new version of Matt as a lawyer, where he's now partners with Kirsten McDuffie, and he has a law firm with Kirsten McDuffie, and all these other things. So they had to find sort of a middle ground. And if you're thinking about it, yeah, you know what? It's not as bad as it could have been, but they definitely misled the fans in the process. And
Nikki Jane.
Okay.
Yeah, Nikki James.
Nikki James. Okay.
Yep, she's from Severance. Actually, she was in Severance. She's got a good.
Oh, she's the one giving all the medical. She's the pseudo doctor.
I've never watched Severance yet.
Oh, okay.
It's on my queue. I was 5 minutes into episode 1, and then my wife fell asleep, and it crossed the point of that she wants to watch it too, but I'm not allowed to watch it with her. And I'm a man. I can't figure out like how long do I wait before I go ahead and just risk it. So there it
Right.
sits.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So I basically think that they willfully did this knowing that they were going to mislead the fans in the marketing, and that this was going to be this is what was going to happen. And I think they more or less did it so they could save some money, and they didn't inflate the budget because they had a whole thing laid out at first, and then they realized in the last moments they're like, oh shit, we are going down the wrong road, we have to recover, but we can't pay for 2 entire productions, so how can we fix this problem? I that's my theory. Thoughts?
Valid.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, this could have ended. This could have gone badly, the way they did this. Luckily, it didn't end badly. By the end of episode 2, I wasn't thinking of Karen and Foggy anymore. I was thinking about where are we moving forward, especially with the White Tiger law drama. That's going to be very intriguing, only because I like law procedurals. So I think that's going to be a really fun B plot of this show. Is him, defending White Tiger. So that's going to be fun. But yeah, I mean, if handled poorly, I think this could have been bad. But from the discourse, I don't know if it's about 50-50, but there's not as much backlash. I'm not reading as much backlash. Could be the algorithm, but I'm not reading as much backlash about the Foggy thing that I thought there would have been, because I think it was handled well. I think they gave him, was it quick? Yes, but it was a proper send off. I think it was a proper send off for both of them. Very emotional. The way it all happened, and the driving point that made Matt Murdock hit rock bottom as Daredevil when he threw Bullseye off the top of the roof. He has that no killing rule, sort of similar to Batman. But he didn't think about it and just threw him off the roof. Now Bullseye being Bullseye, he lived through it. So I don't know how a new spine saves you from falling on your head, but that's a whole nother thing. So, but I think they did well. And it's moving forward. So we're not tied. We're not going to have those endless comparisons to the Netflix series anymore. This is a whole new thing. There were some comparisons at the beginning, but now we're in a new era of Daredevil.
Yeah, but why wouldn't you want to pay homage, like direct homage to the Netflix series? Like, is your artistic ego so big that you can't handle, sort of kind of riding those coattails a little bit?
Yeah, it's
just
Disney.
So the fans can get what they want?
Yeah, it's Disney.
That's sad, man. That's really fucking sad. That's really fucking sad.
The mouse owns the world, man. The mouse is like, and mouse, don't get mad at me. Don't get mad at me, please.
The fans literally campaigned to get Foggy and Karen back in the show.
Yeah.
They campaigned for that. And I think it's a pretty fucking dirty ass thing that what they did. Like, they should, like, I don't know, man. It's not cool.
Well,
it's
Karen's
not cool at all.
Karen's not dead. She could come back for some reason. And, by the end of episode...
Apparently she's cast in season 2 already. Yeah. And so is Eldon.
Yeah.
Like, how does that work?
Because Foggy gets resurrected by the Hand by episode 9. You didn't?
Oh God.
You don't know that? The Hand's in the
resurrected come back as an assassin,
as an assassin
ninja, and it is gonna be, I don't know. And then Elektra will come back as well.
That's right.
And then that's when Jessica Jones is going to come back and start flying around.
That'll be the
Power Man's going to come around and
there.
start punching shit.
Apparently, there's like some comic storyline where Foggy does die, but he ends up working in secret with somebody else or some shit. Like, it was like a fake death.
Witness protection. So I think he was in witness protection or something.
I think something like along those lines. Yeah. So my hope is it's that. Because if it's that, then I'll apologize and I'll give up my tirade. But if it's not that, dude, some pretty fucking dirty pool.
Well, you know what they say?
Goddamn dirty pool.
You know what they say? No one in comics stays dead unless you're Uncle Ben. So
yeah, that's true.
So we'll see. We're only 2 episodes in.
So one scene we haven't talked about that I want to talk about is Karen. that scene in the bar where she asked Matt to go home with her, like just randomly hook up, that's not Karen. Karen doesn't do that. Like, that was so out of character. Did you guys pick that up or no?
Well, they did hook up in the Netflix series, so it's not completely out of...
But wait a second. But they were emotionally invested in each other. They wanted to be together. It wasn't like a fuck buddy situation. This was a fuck buddy situation. Because Matt literally says to her, he goes, I think that's against the rules of friendship. Like, he says something a lot, akin to that.
They had a couple of drinks in them. They were having fun. Inhibitions were lowered.
Fuck that, man.
Alcohol changes people, man.
Am I the only person who cares about accurate characterization? Like, am I the only person on this planet?
Depends on the character.
That that has any integrity when it comes to this shit anymore? Like, seriously.
Man, listen, I didn't. For me, when it was coming to that, I rolled my eyes, to be honest with you. I'm like, okay, that's not what I'm here for. I don't need a relationship between the two. And then it was shot down fast enough. I'm like, all right, whatever. But I wouldn't have been mad if they would have been like, all right, let's go hook up for a little bit.
I think it was all in jest. They were just joking with each other because of their past, right? Because they have hooked up in the past. They're like, hey man, you want to get out of here? They had a couple of drinks and they're having fun. They're walking out of their storefront law firm, arm in arm with all three of each other. They had a great day of something, and they're celebrating Cherry's retirement. It's a good time. It's a party atmosphere, and it shows everybody having fun, because what comes next is, the whole Bullseye invading everything. And so it has that dichotomy of everybody's cheery, everybody's fun, and then it just makes that fight scene that much darker.
I get it, but we get one conversation between the two of them, and they're talking about hooking up with each other. I'm just looking for a little bit more substance, That's all.
I think it was brevity.
So the other scene I want to talk about is when Bullseye hit the ground behind Karen as she was tending to Foggy. And the way that they played that scene deserves a fucking Oscar, like 70 Oscars.
When he says, hello, Karen?
No. When she's tending to Foggy after he got shot, and Matt throws Bullseye off of the roof behind her.
Yeah.
And she hears the splat, and she's like, oh my God. She does not want to turn around.
Yep.
Because she thinks it's potentially Matt. Right?
Yeah.
That scene deserves like all the Oscars.
She's such a great actress.
She fucking kills it. Yeah, she's fantastic.
Good. Deborah Ann Woll's
she's
great.
She's without a doubt one of the best living actors on the planet right now. And again, another reason why I'm annoyed that we're not going to get to see much of her, unfortunately, it seems. And to send her to San Francisco, like,
is San Francisco where She-Hulk took place?
What?
No, She-Hulk was in New York. I mean,
was it in New York?
She was in California.
No, it was in LA.
She was in LA.
Okay.
Oh, wait.
She-Hulk was in LA.
Yeah. That was LA.
Yeah.
Ant-Man's in San Francisco.
Yeah.
So maybe Karen and Ant-Man,
Right.
I don't think so. What a dork.
Hey, Karen, you want to see a trick?
His card tricks?
Do that magic trick, by the way.
Yeah, he's pretty good with that shit, isn't he? But yeah, no, that scene was amazing. Just so well played. I would love to hear her on a podcast and say that was her idea, because that was so creative and so inventive. Like, I just want to hear her say, like, I improv that. They gave me some blocking. They told me where to be. They told me what was going to happen, and I came up with that whole thing on my own. That's what I want to hear for her, because like, it was just brilliant. Just a brilliant way to play that scene. So good.
With Deborah Ann Woll, she has a movie coming out this week. She's in Queen of the Ring.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
With Emily Bett Rickards?
Yeah, from the Arrowverse, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. She's
interesting.
Gladys Gillum.
Interesting.
And apparently she was in Quantum Leap, the updated Quantum Leap back in a couple of years ago.
Oh, that show was
really
bad, dude.
Yeah.
That show
I never
awful.
watched it. I watched one episode and I was like, yeah, I'll pass.
Yeah, it was not great.
Yeah.
It was so not great, I don't remember Deborah Ann Woll even being in it. It was that bad.
So the other thing about this born again concept, by the way, born again is from like literally when Wilson Fisk destroyed Matt Murdock's life in the comics during the 80s. So I'm really getting tired of people being, oh, it's called born again. It's not a fucking happy thing, guys. It's not something you should be invoking to be like, oh, we're, new Daredevil. No, that's not what it's about at all. But anyways, my point is this. The other thing about this new version, born again Daredevil, that I really did not fuck with, that new apartment. And the fact that he's not living in Hell's Kitchen anymore. Like, what?
It's
That's
new
not
Matt.
Daredevil.
It's Matt the lawyer now. So he has to play the part. Nice apartment with a view, nice office with an actual conference room table. This is a year. This is a year have passed.
Tell me you don't understand Matt Murdock without telling me you don't understand Matt Murdock.
Okay, you're valid here. Like, yes, that because he's the devil of Hell's Kitchen. It's part of the character of Daredevil.
Yeah,
I mean, like that's Hell Devil. I mean, like that's part of the gimmick.
That's the whole thing. He's the devil of Hell's Kitchen.
But this
is to show Hell's Kitchen.
But this was to show Matt not trying to be Daredevil for that year. This was him going cold turkey on the whole Daredevil thing. He was trying to separate himself from that persona, and it's this is the creative decision that Disney Plus made. Whether I personally understand Daredevil or not, I understand why they did that, because if the premise was and they laid the groundwork that he was not going to be Daredevil. And we saw that at the end of episode 2, where another great fight scene. My God, that was a great fight scene.
Yeah.
And he yells into the ether after doing it because he didn't want to do that. It was like he was addicted to being Daredevil. And with that comes that addictive behavior. He hit rock bottom with killing Bullseye. He realizes he cannot be Daredevil anymore if he's willing to kill people. So he makes a complete 180 turn, quits. I don't know if he quit cold turkey, but he quit cold turkey for a year. So if he was in Hell's Kitchen in his old apartment, you're surrounding yourself like an alcoholic surrounding themselves with alcohol. If they don't want to drink anymore, they got to separate themselves from that. And that's what he did. And that's why, again, it's called Born Again. This is a different Matt Murdock now. But we're going to see him come back to being that Daredevil after that fight.
I get that, but why do you have to start off the story with Daredevil giving up being Daredevil? It doesn't, why? What purpose does that serve other than to give the writers, this sort of plastic transition, that they can sort of depend on to kind of do the work for them?
Well, because Matt Murdock crossed a line. He crossed a line he said he wouldn't cross, is by almost killing Bullseye. As deadly of an enemy as he's been. What's that?
I understand that part.
Yeah.
So why write yourself into a corner where it, in the first episode, where you have to literally have him give up the mantle? What purpose is that going to serve?
That he was trying to make a change, that he was trying to be a better human, a better person. Now, like I said, at the end of episode 2, he's back. He's back to being Daredevil. We're going to see him kicking ass again. So it didn't last long. I mean, a year, but it didn't last long for us as a viewer. So it was, it's like when Spider-Man gave up the
you're making my point for me. You're making my point for me. It didn't last long. It was like, oh shit, I don't smoke anymore. Why do I have this cigarette in my hand? Oh shit. That's literally what it was like.
Because
what it was like.
He fell off the wagon. It's like any addict that's like, why am I doing drugs again? Well, there was an incident that made me fall off the wagon. How am I going to struggle with that now? How am I going to get back from that now? He did not want to. He probably killed those 2 guys in the fight. The way it looked, he didn't want. He killed that one guy. He didn't want to do what he just did, and yelling out in a primal way is evidence of that. He knew he just messed up. But now, how is he going to struggle with that through the rest? And we've seen that in previous Daredevil iterations, like him being Catholic and him being a lawyer. He's both sides of that coin of, I need to follow the law, but when the law fails, I got to go beat somebody up. But he has that inner turmoil within himself. So now we kind of get to see that again, I guess, in this sense, with him beating those two guys up at the end of episode 2. He didn't want to do it, but he did it, and we're back. So he's got his one, he's got his day one, he's got his day one chip, and now we got to figure out what he does with it.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying, dude. But you're but like I said, you're kind of making my point for me. Like it really, I don't know. We'll see what happens. Like we got 7 episodes to go, but having him move out of Hell's Kitchen, it feels like a sitcom. It's like, oh, I'm not going to be this person anymore, so I'm going to move into this fancy apartment and I'm going to change my clothes, and like it just feels dumb and empty. Like
he's put down one costume and picks up another.
Yeah, and then we're going to get the scene where he stands in front of all of his costumes and he's trying to pick which one he likes the best, but he can't see. So that's why it's the dumbest scene ever. Because like color really doesn't matter to Matt Murdock at all. He kind of sees everything in this sort of grayish kind of wash of everything. It's hilarious. Yeah. Well, listen, I really hope that they've got something excellent planned for these next 7 episodes. And Rich, you were saying that you haven't seen a lot of negative feedback about these episodes. I have. I've seen quite a bit, to be honest with you. It has not been as positive as people are making it out to be. People definitely feel cheated a little bit about the whole Foggy and Karen thing. I haven't been on the Daredevil Reddit yet. I'm planning on going back there, probably checking out sometime tomorrow. But predictions. Let's talk about predictions.
So or go ahead.
No, sorry, go ahead. I was going to say I don't know what to make of what's going to happen, but go ahead, Brad.
Yeah. So my prediction is just based totally on knowing that the Punisher is coming, and the Punisher is going to help deal with the police corruption. They're going to identify police corruption. There's going to be a break somewhere between Fisk and Daredevil. As Daredevil is putting on his old suit, Fisk is putting on his old suit, and it's going to come to head. There's going to be the attorney fight. We're going to get a cool fight scene with White Tiger, Daredevil, and Punisher, kicking the cop's ass, I guess I want to say. Man, that's kind of where I'm thinking. I don't think we have enough to base anything true on there, especially because the big part was Foggy's death, and you're like, oh crap, what's going on now? But with the attorney thing and then he's representing White Tiger, I will say he figured out he was White Tiger very, very fast.
Yeah, I think isn't that Hero 101? Don't put your super suit underneath your bed.
Don't even get me started on that shit. That was the dumbest fucking thing I've ever seen.
That was stupid. That was very stupid. That was
so fucking bad. Like, what? You have your super suit under your bed?
Another thing that I like too about the whole White Tiger trial situation is with a straight face, they're sitting in the judge's office going, well, he didn't have his white suit on and he wasn't wearing the magical amulet. Like, this is where we are in New York in the MCU, right?
Yeah, I know.
Everything is so crazy that you can talk to a judge with a straight face and say magic amulet in your defense. It was so funny. I don't know if it was meant to be funny, but I found it to be kind of hilarious.
And the commissioner was so straight laced, and the cops are trying to kill the attorney to the guy. And like, okay.
I do want to talk about the cop with the Punisher tattoo on his arm. What do we make of that? What do you think that is?
What was behind the skull?
I paused it. I couldn't tell.
Was it a bullet?
I couldn't tell either.
I couldn't tell either.
Do you think the Punisher has like cops that work for him? Or do we think this is some sort of weird acolyte type of situation where they look to kind of like, we see today in the real world, where they look to the Punisher as some sort of hero, but really he's
Folk
kind of
hero.
yeah as
I'm
a
gonna
folk
guess
hero.
it's that. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a way to do a political statement.
Yeah, it could be a bastardization of what the Punisher stands for. Definitely.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, it could be a perversion of like the way that he doles out justice. I think that could be actually the approach that they're going for.
because they showed it on purpose, so it's gonna come into play later. As in, like the Punisher comes in and is like gives him a monologue of you wear my logo, but you don't stand for anything that I stand for. I don't know.
Oh,
We'll
that's
see.
definitely coming.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
definitely coming. How does Heather Glenn fit into all this besides just being Matt's romantic interest?
Oh, we did meet Muse when Heather Glenn was doing the book read.
Do we know that's Muse for sure though?
Yeah, that was the actor that plays Muse. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
the curly headed kind of scrawny looking guy.
Why would they publish that? Just don't tell us who the actor is so we can figure it out for our fucking selves. That's the fun part.
If Muse kills Heather, I think I might riot because that's going to be bad. Like, that's going to be bad.
Well, there's already been a mentally deranged person that was seeing a therapist in the continuity of the on-screen mythos. Bullseye. Did he kill his therapist? No, he didn't kill his therapist. So I don't know, but and what about her being the marriage counselor for fucking Wilson Fisk and Mrs. Fisk, Vanessa?
Such a coincidence. I mean, like, yeah.
I think it's an interesting thing for them to be in marriage counseling because, while Fisk was away getting shot in the eye in Hawkeye and recuperating from that, and then going to Oklahoma trying to win back Echo back into the fold. Mrs. Fisk had to run things. She had to run the criminal empire, and she likes it, and she's making money, and everybody's getting along in the underworld.
And she's good at it.
And then he comes back as mayor and, kind of wants that a little bit of that back. So it's kind of this internal fight. You gave me control of this because you asked me to, and now I don't want to relinquish control of it again. So I thought it was interesting. And with them sitting on the couch being far apart from each other, I thought was an interesting take. So it'll be interesting to see how they cross paths. They obviously, well, I don't want to say obviously, they probably don't know that Heather and Matt Murdock are an item. So it is coincidental, but it'll be interesting to see as they progress through the counseling and they are going to find out that they're together, how that plays into the machinations of Wilson Fisk's new political career.
Right.
So yeah, I thought that was interesting. One Easter egg I thought I wanted to talk about real quick was when Bullseye threw the paperclip at the Fly. That was a nice little callback to Colin Farrell's Bullseye in Ben Affleck's Daredevil, where he killed the dude with the paperclip. I thought, oh, see, that's a nice little homage to the unfairly maligned Ben Affleck Daredevil.
Yeah, and there was a couple of because the script demands it moments too in that beginning sequence. Like throughout the entire series, we hear Matt being able to hear pretty much like across town of like everybody doing everything, right? But when Bullseye is stalking this guy to get Foggy to come to his place or whatever, he's not able to hear that. Like that was kind of selective in my opinion, but what can you do? So
speaking of his powers, the way they the way they depicted him on screen, I loved how they played with the aspect ratio of different things. Like when he was listening to Foggy's conversation on the phone, the aspect ratio changed and really focused in on Foggy. And then you have BB Urich and doing her little web series, and that aspect ratio changes. And then the opening scene where the aspect ratio opens up as if we're like opening up to a new world. It was really some choice cinematography options there that I thought was really neat to see. And the sound design was really good too.
The special effects have been getting a little bit of heat, a little bit of salt from the fans, and I can see where they're coming from. Like the roof swinging scenes were not the greatest. They were very slapped together, in my opinion. They definitely could have been better. I think the roof swinging scenes we saw in Ben Affleck's movie were better than what we got in this particular show. What do you guys think of the special effects?
I don't have any issues really. I thought it was fine. I definitely can see what you're saying when with the roof scene, with that roof scene when he's the little billy club swing. But yeah, I mean, I guess I didn't really pay much attention to it. I was like, all right, it is what it is. So
Yeah, I thought the physics were a little weird. Like he was stiff for swinging through the air. Like it's not like how Spider-Man swings through the air. Like when Spider-Man swings, you can see the physics happening. But with this one, it was like very much strike a pose and then swing from one part to the other. Now, what I thought was kind of fun was when he landed on the roof in a Spider-Man pose, and everybody took that screenshot and said, "Oh, Spider-Man's making a cameo," because they thought that was Spider-Man, but it wasn't. It was just Daredevil. So that was cool. That was pretty fun. One thing that the opening fight scene in episode 1 has taught me is I think I need to get a new TV, because when it got really dark, I couldn't see anything because the black levels on my TV suck. So I gotta get a new TV for that. If they continue to have these fights in the dark, I'm not gonna be able to see anything.
Did you guys find it weird when the camera followed Cherry out during that oneer, and then like you come back and it's like the fight just continued as the camera got back into position? That was kind of weird.
Yeah, I think that was one of those clever editing tricks for the oneer.
Yeah, but it didn't work because as the camera pulled back in, I was like, "What? Where are we?" And I just saw two guys fighting each other again. And I'm like, "Oh, okay. Why did we not stay with the fight? Like that's what the oneers are for. They're for the fight.
Mm-hmm.
They're not to go out and survey what's happening outside the bar. That doesn't really make a lot of sense." Yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm a little bit offended by the whole like rug pull thing on the fans. I think that's pretty dirty. Not gonna lie. I don't know. You guys probably think I've complained a lot in this episode, but what can I do?
Makes for good conversation though when we're not all in agreement though.
I thought you said you liked the show, Frank.
I do like the show. Like I'm not gonna put it in. I'm not gonna say it's awful or it's bad. I don't think it's bad. Plus, we're only 2 episodes in. But if I'm being honest with myself and I'm being true to myself and I'm reacting honestly and I'm being sincere about the way that I'm reacting, then I've got to share these thoughts because this is how I feel. Like, it's not cool to do this shit to people. Like you can't, like, for me, if I was a producer on this show and I saw, the people above me answer the call from the fans, like, "Hey, you know what? We're seeing a lot of push online to get Deborah back and to get Eldon back, and we're gonna do it." I'd be like, "Oh, that's great, guys. That's amazing. Give the fans what they want. That's amazing." And then I was in a meeting with them 6 weeks later, and they laid out for me. They're like, "Okay, so this is what we're gonna do." I'd be like, "I quit. See ya," because it's just wrong. It's not cool. Like, I like Rich, I know it doesn't bother you that much, but like, I think where it doesn't bother you as far as the content of the show goes, I get that. But, coming from a principled place, it's a pretty shitty thing to do. Would you agree to that?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree it was a bit of a rug pull, but for the purposes of the show, it worked. And that's where I'm coming at it from.
But it wasn't for the purposes of the show, I don't think. I think it was for the purposes of getting what they wanted and getting what they wanted, but at the same time pacifying the fan base enough so they would stay engaged and stay interested in the series. So again, it's like it's like a drug dealer that gives out a free dose, to get to get the addict hooked. You give them a taste and they're like, "Oh shit, I want some more." Right. And that's kind of what they did with this whole Foggy. They're like, "Oh, we're bringing back Eldon. We're bringing back Deborah. Oh, we're going to put them in the pressers. we're gonna show you interviews with Charlie and them and all this shit just to do this.
I mean,
Like,
it was kind of
pretty
funny
fucking
watching.
nerdy.
It was kind of funny watching the interviews with Eldon going, "Oh yeah, it was just so great to be back on the show and being embodying Foggy again." And then I'm watching it back on, dude, you're in it for like 5 minutes. How much joy did you have? You were there for one scene, and then you went to the crap table and then headed home.
Must be a flashback in season 2 though too, so he's gonna get to be him again.
Yeah, him
get it just for that little check. Get that check.
Get that Disney
him and
money.
Deborah signed NDAs probably this thick.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, but I don't know, man. Like, why? Like, Marvel's reputation couldn't be worse than it is right now. Like, the sentiment from the fans couldn't be lower at this point. So why would you even gamble like this? It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any fucking sense whatsoever. I don't know. Anyways, come back next episode. I promise to be more positive.
Too early to tell.
Oh man, it's just not cool. That's all. I don't know. Anyways, I'm just speaking for the fans, I hope, but whatever. Cool. All right. So thank you guys so much for joining us for this episode of Meanwhile Back on the Podcast. We will come back with another review for Daredevil Born Again for episode 3 once they drop it. Are they dropping it in 2s or are they dropping it individually now?
I was just looking at them. They are dropping it in 1s.
In 1s, in singles.
Yep.
All right.
So,
just like the strip club.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. It's going to go until April 19th or April 15th is the final episode.
Okay. So the next one's what? Next Tuesday?
Next Tuesday.
Yep. Tuesdays at 9.
Tuesdays at 9. Cool. All right. Well, we will be back here for that. And if they kill off Karen, I'm going to fucking lose my mind.
So they're going to get Matt, a Daredevil, and Ant-Man team up in San Francisco.
I would pay to see that.
Maybe just a little.
Oh, my God. All right, folks. Well, why am I touching my microphone? All right, folks. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Take care, and be sure to go check out some of those back episodes from Meanwhile, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace.